and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1456, and today's date is December 24th, 2017, and the title of the episode is The Neocons Cabal Push for an Event in Ukraine, a Plan Within a Plan. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. For those people who are celebrating Christmas, Merry Christmas to everyone, Happy Holidays. And my second announcement is that I placed a new interview on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So if you go over to X22 Report Spotlight, you can see the new interview with Bill Holter. It is on there. And you can also see it on the x22report.com or newsentinel.com. Scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You can play the interview right on the site. Or you can go to Steemit, that's steemit.com/@X22Report, and you can play the interview right on Steemit. Now, we are headed to a point where the economy is breaking down dramatically. Now, there are many people out there that cannot see this. Actually, during 2008, prior to this, many people didn't see this at all. They thought things were going to move forward, things were going to get better, things were going to continually improve, and they never saw the crash coming because they were listening to the corporate media, listening and watching the stock market, not paying attention to what was happening around them. And when we look at the economy today, we're not looking at the stock market. Yes, the stock market shows us that it's manipulated. It shows us that the central banks are controlling it because they use it as a gauge to convince people that the economy is doing well. But when you look at the underlying mechanics of the economy, what is really happening with the people, you see a completely different story. And when we apply common sense to it, we see the economy breaking down. Now, if you go back, we looked at retail and we said, listen, this makes no sense. If the job numbers are improving, because when we entered the recession in 2008, 2009, according to the government, we had like 10, 11% unemployment. And as unemployment came down, retail sales got worse. Now, of course, they blame this on many different things. And we used common sense and said, listen, this doesn't make sense. Let's look at the retail numbers, let's look at the unemployment numbers. And we went through it, we sifted through it, and we found out, yeah, they manipulated all the data. Because as more and more people get jobs, that means more and more people will go out and purchase items. Because they feel comfortable, they feel good, they're making money, they have security. And we're seeing the actual opposite. Now, of course, people went on to say it was the weather, that's why, and then they went on to say it was online, and we debunked all of that. Now we're seeing, and this is coming out of many different areas, like the Denver Post and many other small newspapers, where they're having certain financial individuals comment on what has been happening in the economy. And a lot of these individuals are seeing that there are problems within the economy, and a lot of people are pointing to the yield curve. And we know that one of Wall Street's traditional warning signs for a recession is a flashing yellow right now, and nobody seems to even care about it. Now, the same thing happened back in 2008, 2001, where people they didn't look at anything. We looked at many different indicators, and we see that things are really breaking down. Now, I say we've been in a recession since 2016. Now, when we enter this recession and enter a collapse, they will go back in time and they'll tell you this is where it started, and I do believe it started in 2016. And what we're seeing right now is that the yield curve is starting to flatten. And a flattened yield curve often is a harbinger of a slowing economic growth, or we're entering a recession. Now, you can use the flattening yield curve like a crystal ball. You can look into it and say, yes, we see something happening. Let's look at other indicators to see if this matches up. We've done this. Bank of America's out there saying there's 11 of the 19 indicators already lighting up saying, warning, warning, we're entering into a recession. And when we look at this, we could see that this is what this really means. Now, the Fed, they have raised the short-term rates. And they raised the short-term rates multiple times. The thing is, the Fed has less control over longer term rates, such as the 10-year Treasury yield, which are affected not only by forecasts for the Fed's rate decisions, but also by expectations for inflation, economic growth, and many other things. Now, a rule of thumb when we're looking at the flattening yield curve says a recession would follow in about a year or so, or less. And what we're seeing is that we are headed down this path. Now, this flattening yield curve started in the mid part of 2017. And we can see going into 2018, we might be entering a recession. Now, this will be the official recession that the government, the Fed, will recognize. We're saying that we've already been in a recession, and this is going to be a depression, a collapse type of scenario that we're heading into. And if you look at what has been happening with the retail industry, we're in the holiday season, people are using credit cards more so than ever before, and we can see the defaulting on auto loans, the housing market, the bubble in Canada is starting to pop. We know it's a bubble because housing prices are completely out of the reach of the everyday purchaser. Individuals, they are not taking out mortgages because if you see the housing industry in continually increase, you would see mortgage applications skyrocket almost at the same pace. This tells us someone else, some other institution, some other foreign buyer has been purchasing homes. And when we look at our research, we see that it was hedge funds, investment companies, foreign buyers that have been doing this. The American person is on the sidelines because they just can't afford these houses out there today. We don't see the correlation anymore. It's completely gone. Now, back prior to 2008, we saw the correlation where mortgage applications, they were going up. People were taking out mortgages like crazy. The housing market was going up. This time, we see the Fed controlling the 20 cities. And everything outside of the 20 cities, they don't care about because the only thing they do is they report on the 20 cities. Now, we understand that the Fed, those who are in the cabal, who are looking to bring this system down and blame it on someone else, they're creating this gigantic illusion and getting ready to push the blame someplace else. This is their main objective because the central banks, in the end, they don't care where they're located. They don't care what country they're dealing with. As long as they're with a country that has manufacturing, that has a gold reserve, that has the ability to sustain itself, they can start their monetary policy in this area. The United States is not that country anymore. The United States, the dollar reserve is coming to an end. They needed another place to park their operation, and that looks like it's going to be China. This is why they've been duplicating everything out in the East. They've been doing this on purpose, and we can see that we're headed into this area. And this is why you need to be prepared and ready for what is coming. We see that those who are in power, the Cabal, the Neocons, all these different groups, they're still pushing their agenda. And you have to remember, these individuals will never, ever give up. I don't care if the ship is sinking and they're hanging on and it's going under. They will never, ever admit. They will never admit guilt. They will never tell the truth. They will continue with their agenda. And what we're seeing is they're still pushing the Russian collusion. They're still trying to make a case. They're still trying to start wars. They're doing whatever they can to start what they have started way back, because they spent a lot of time, a lot of money trying to take over the world. This was their plan. We see right now that the Russiagate story, which was created by the Clinton camp, by many others, well, it's all falling apart. We see the wife of the Fusion GPS founder admits her husband was behind the fake Russiagate story. Mary Jacoby, the wife of Fusion GPS founder Glenn Simpson, who was the man in the middle of the entire Russiagate scandal, boasted on Facebook about how Russiagate would not exist if it weren't for her husband. And we're realizing that this was created out of thin air. It was used to put pressure on Trump when he was trying to get elected, or even after he was elected. They tried the Russian collusion with trying to link him up with all these different things. They were spying on him. And what's very interesting about all of this is that all of this is turning out to be fake. And we're starting to see other stories out there. And remember, the neocons, the cabal, they use the corporate media to paint a picture that something is happening when it's really not. Just like they're trying to paint the picture that we're going to war with North Korea. They're trying to paint the picture that, everything that's being done right now around the country is not in the best interest for the people, where whatever they're saying is completely the opposite. Now, we know the neocons, the Cabal, they've been trying to get a war started. They like their system. They want to keep their system intact. We see that a lot of these truth bombs are coming out. They need a distraction. And we know that they've been pushing in North Korea. We know that Syria, that's a tough call right now because we can see that they're really beaten in the Middle East. We know out in Ukraine, what do we have? We have John McCain, Lindsey Graham. They were out there in the beginning of the year saying that this is the year of the offensive, and it looks like this is the next hotspot. And we notice that they're trading and going back and forth between these areas, trying to get something started. And they're using the corporate media to make people believe that, we're going to be entering war because they want Russia to respond. They want North Korea to respond. They want to use that, play it up in the corporate media. And what is happening right now is that their plan is being overrun by a deeper plan that they don't even realize is happening to them. Now, what's very interesting is that the Cabal, Neocons, they captured Ukraine. They spent about $5 billion. Victoria Nuland was in there, and she orchestrated the entire thing. We realized that the snipers were paid off. They were told to be firing on all these individuals, and the truth is coming out. And you have to remember, Trump, he knows all this. He knows what is really going on. He has all the data. He's not, snowed by any of it. He understands what's going on. He's a businessman. He makes deals. He's been working with Putin. He's been working with Xi Jinping. He's been on the phone to them. We're not going to war with Russia. First of all, over the many, many years, we can see that Putin doesn't work that way. Just like people thought we were going to war in Syria back in 2013, people thought we were going to war in Syria when Russia came into Syria. And the only way we were going to go to war is not because of Russia starting it. It was because of the Cabal, the Neocons, creating some type of an event to try to start a war, like when they shot down a Russian plane. This was a push to try to start something. And guess what? Russia didn't respond. They're trying to do it with North Korea, where they're trying to push their agenda, trying to get North Korea to do something. Now, if these countries don't do something, guess what? The Cabal, the Neocons, they're going to do it for them to make it look like they started a war. That's the only way we're going to get into war. We are not going to invade anyone. Russia's not going to start it. China's not going to start it. North Korea's not going to start it. It's not going to happen. The only way it's going to happen from the Neocons and the Cabal. They're the ones who are behind all of this. And out in Ukraine right now, we see that Ukraine right now, they've lost a gas dispute to Russia in order to pay $2 billion to Gazprom. Now remember, the Cabal, the Neocons, they captured Ukraine because they were going to control the pipelines coming from Russia feeding into Europe. Actually, Biden put his son on the board of directors of the gas company inside of Ukraine. And then all of a sudden, Crimea said we didn't want to be a part of this. Russia stepped in. They had a vote. They voted themselves away. No, Russia didn't come in, bring in their armed forces and steal it. They voted and said we didn't want to be a part of this. The southeastern people, well, they're doing the same thing. And we can see that the puppets, the neocons in Ukraine, they want Ukraine back. And this is why they call those people in the southeast terrorists, because if you're against us, you are a terrorist. Now, these were just everyday people who wanted to live their lives that didn't want to be part of this puppet government. And when the whole thing started out, they called them terrorists because they were fighting against this new puppet government, which the people did not really elect. And this was all orchestrated by the Cabal, the neocons. And remember, in the southeastern area of Ukraine, Lugansk, Donetsk, they have coal. They want this area because right now what the Cabal and the neocons have in Ukraine, guess what? They have nothing. And they know this. And we could see that Trump, most likely with his tax deal, because this all came out at the same exact time, made some type of deal with using the Ukrainian Freedom Act, which was signed by Obama back in 2014, which was voted on in Congress, to provide Ukraine at the time non-lethal weapons to help the puppet government fight against the southeastern people. And we can see that, yes, shipments of non-lethal weapons have gone to Ukraine. Actually, soldiers have been training, the police force. We have American soldiers in there training the other soldiers of the Ukrainian army. And we see right now there's breaking news, and we mentioned this before, where Trump is going to sign off on providing U.S. anti-tank missiles. Now, U.S. anti-tank missiles is included in the Ukraine Freedom Support Act, which they never shipped over. Now, who's leading the charge in this? Well, it's McCain, it's Corker, it's Tom Cotton. These are the neocons. They're pushing this very hard. Now, they're saying that this package is worth $47 million, that they're going to sell about 210 anti-tank missiles and 35 launchers. Now, let's think about this. McCain, he is pushing this, and he has dealt with the neo-Nazis, the neo-Nazi government in Ukraine. They orchestrated this. They were there already this year. And McCain is out there saying that I urge the president to authorize additional sales of defense lethal weapons, including anti-tank munitions, and to fully utilize security assistance funds provided by the Congress to enable Ukraine to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Now, we understand that Trump speaks to Putin, and we know that Trump is not looking to get into war with Putin. And we see that what is happening here is what is happening out in Syria. It's a plan within a plan, where everyone thought and everyone was jumping on board. McCain was waving his arms up and down, and all the other neocons were waving their arms up and down when Trump fired missiles into a deserted airbase, because he let Putin, he let Assad know ahead of time, we will be doing this. And everyone thought we were going to invade, we were going to mount hundreds of thousands of troops in there, and actually the opposite happened, where Russia and the United States were fighting finally against the Islamic State, removing the paid mercenaries. Remember, the Islamic State is the paid mercenary group of the Cabal, of the neocons. And now, Russia, Syria have cleared Syria of these paid mercenaries. Yes, there's still little pockets here and there. We also see that the split up of Syria is not happening because the Kurds, well, they're working with the Syrian government. Now, I believe at this time, the same thing is happening with this. He is playing with the neocons. He's playing with the Cabal to making them think that this is going to start a war with Russia. This is what they want. They want Russia to get involved, just like they want North Korea to do something. And they've been trying to do this all along. So this plan is within another plan. And it's not going to turn out the way the corporate media, the way the neocons, and the way all of these individuals think, because Putin and Trump are working together. And you have to remember, Putin put together this Minsk I, Minsk II deal, and we know the neocons, the Cabal, they have not been following this plan. They've not been doing the things they were supposed to do. And I think what we're going to see here is a complete rotation of what is happening out in Ukraine, and whatever is brewing there is going to be stamped down. And it looks like they're stamping down what is happening in Syria. It's going to happen in Ukraine, which is going to leave North Korea. And then North Korea right now is saying, listen, we don't care how many sanctions you place on us. And we know that all these countries can go around the sanctions. I mean, think about if you have your own children or you try to force them to do something. You know they always go around what you're trying to force on them, or any other person, what you're trying to force on them. It never works out because there's always a way around it. We see it over the many, many years. Right now, North Korea, and this is part of the plan, is saying, listen, I don't care how many sanctions you place on our country, we're never giving up our nuclear program. This was the important part. They're never going to let America blackmail us into giving up our nuclear program. The plan is to have North Korea a nuclear state, to have them inspected, to have them have nuclear weapons, so the neocons, the Cabal, they will have no choice but to back off of this country. This is Russia and China's plan. And placing sanctions, they know, which do not do anything, will allow them the space they need to actually do this. Now, I know many people think there's going to be a war in this area. The only way there's going to be a war is if the Cabal or the Neocons create the war by having a false flag event. And we know already that the government creates these false flag events because within the Kennedy documents, it turns out that, yes, the United States plans false flag events. So we see all of this happening all at once. We see the U.S. military, they have issued an alert after discovering North Korea propaganda on American bases. Oh no, there's CDs, there's leaflets, there's many things, trying to convince the people of it. I mean, seriously, this is what they're using right now, where they're afraid that people are going to listen to the propaganda to get us into war. I mean, think about what they're doing here. They're creating something out of thin air. And what we're going to see happen coming into 2018, we're going to see the Cabal lose more and more power. The neocons lose more and more power. And the plans that they have, they're not going to be able to activate any of them. They're just going to die out. And the corporate media is going to be left with, what do we do? Look at the plan in the Middle East. The Middle Eastern countries are now pushing and creating a wave in the UN, which really has never been seen before because of what Trump did. There was a plan within a plan to come out and say, okay, this is what you really wanted. Here, Jerusalem is now the capital of Israel. Let Russia, let the Middle Eastern countries come together and create something completely different. And this is why Nikki Haley was completely crazy in the UN, trying to force people in a free, democratic way to see it her way, which that is a joke, by the way. She's forcing people to either see it our way or there's no way. All of this is being done. Remember, the Cabal and the Neocons, they've had many, many years to create what we're seeing today. It's going to take a little bit of time to break it all down and get rid of them because they're in everything in government. These are non-elected positions. They have infiltrated everything. And to undo all of this is going to take some time. But as you can see, everything is being reversed. And we're going to see things reverse even further as we move into 2018. I believe the Ukraine situation, if we look at the actions of Trump and Putin, if we truly were going to get into war with Russia, and Trump wanted to start a war with Russia, he would have done it in Syria. Very easy to do. Arm the moderate rebels, keep the Air Force there, push the Islamic State, use the paid mercenaries, and shoot down a Russian jet. Or pretend that one of the Syrian forces shot down a U.S. jet, or something like that. But this is not happening. Because they already understand each other. They already understand what needs to be done to get rid of the Cabal, to get rid of the neocons, to stop the push for war. And if there was going to be a war with China or Russia, they would have had this already. Because you could see by the actions of China and Russia, they're not bringing in troops. They're not pushing a war. They're not getting ready to attack. It was always the Cabal and the neocons who were bringing in the troops. They were bringing in the weapons right up to the border of China and Russia, right up to the border of North Korea, into Ukraine. And what we're seeing right now is a complete reversal of all of this. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.